Welcome to Rebel Watch, an all-Star Wars podcast.
Hey, what are you trying to push on us?
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly.
Hey Star Wars fans, welcome back to Rebel Watch. I'm Ez, and this is Mike. How's it going today, Mike?
It's actually Creature. This is Creature. The all-house elf.
House F, Creature.
Creature's here. What can Creature do for you today?
Oh my god.
We'll talk about Star Wars.
Mike's been listening to too much Swish and Flick.
Too much Swish and Flick. I could come on and do a little Creature for them on their podcast.
Dude, I never know what you're going to say when we start these things.
I was going to try a Dobby, but I wasn't ready.
No, yeah, please don't do it, Dobby.
Rest in peace, Dobby.
Yes, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Pour one out for Dobby. That's what they say on Swish and Flick. They do. Pour one out for so-and-so.
I love it.
That's a Swish and Flick thing.
Yeah.
All right, so hey, this is something we had talked about it in the past, just doing sort of, this is a journey to The Last Jedi.
Let's go.
And this is all about episode 1 today. Big deal.
That's controversial in itself.
It is, actually, yeah. But this is just going to be a fun sort of we're calling it like a refresher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so our good friend Tiffany actually sort of said, hey, I kind of want to know some more Deep and Sweaty. I need to kind of...
Yeah.
I can't say this where you're totally gonna. That's what she's bone up on.
Absolutely.
Bone up on some Star Wars, and she's thought, can you guys just maybe do like a series where you kind of like stick with just the main films, the main episodes, and kind of walk us through it.
I actually, spoiler alert for the Swish and Flick cast. I think she said actually that she's done with Harry Potter.
Like she did. Yeah.
So
I think she's.
Sorry.
She's down with Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, so sorry about that.
Sorry, Swish and Flick. Tiffany's ours.
Yep.
But no, I mean, so we're also going to do, we've been talking about trivia trials, and folks, we have our first trivia trials coming next Saturday.
That's right.
Wow, what day is that? Let's actually
That's a great question.
For people here so they know.
Let me give you some music while you're waiting.
Okay, so it's going to be October 7th. We're going to do episode 1 trivia, and we have Lane Smith and his wife.
Smith versus Smith.
Smith versus Smith.
Or Smythe versus Smythe.
Yeah, Mr. Smith versus Mrs. Smith. It's going to be great, and Lane loves episode 1. He's done some artwork for us before, and he's a good friend of ours. And I think his wife is a little nervous.
That's okay. She should be. It's a trial.
She should be. We trained Lane up, back in the day. He was a Padawan learner of ours. He's now out. Gallivanting around the galaxy,
Amen,
doing his own thing. So
a Han Solo, so to speak.
Yeah, he sort of is, right?
With more commitment.
So I mean, exactly. Yeah, I told him the rings are coming off, where they're putting them on the table, and for however long it's going to be, it's trivia trials.
Yeah, and I mean, we initially planned to have the Swish and Flick cast here, but they've just become a big celebrity. So their assistant told us they didn't have any free time here for the next couple months.
Right.
So we said, cool. Okay, well, we'll be waiting when you come down off your high horse.
Right.
So
I think it's a unicorn.
It is a unicorn. What happens when you drink the unicorn's blood? You live forever, and that's what they're going for right now.
Right.
But we've had plans of having all of our good friends on here that are big, sweaty Star Wars fans.
We have, and we'll have Swish and Flick. They're busy for October, which makes sense. It's pushed to Halloween, I guess. So we'll have them on. But really, we've kind of mapped this out. We're going to do the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. We're going to do episodes 1, 2, and 3. And Mike and I are going to start earlier on in the week.
Yeah.
This kind of just crept up on us. We finally just said, just put it on the calendar. We're going to do it. So we're talking episode 1. Then we'll do trivia about episode 1. We'll talk about 2, and we'll host a little trivia. So
that's right.
People who are, like I think our good friend David Fogel is going to be on. We might have Tom, Matt, a few folks. Yep. So we really want to put people to the test here. But we've got some funny questions, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But they'll need to pay attention during the week, because we might be dropping little hints.
That's right.
Here and there as to what the trivia may be.
Potentially.
Yeah. So we just thought it would be a fun way to kind of like push. I think we've got like 8 to 9 weeks or something like that until The Last Jedi. So it's like, we got like... we'll do episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
It's gonna be epic.
Not sure about Rogue One. We'll figure that out along the way. So
I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. So let's get into it. This is episode 1.
What's this one called?
Yeah, the Phantom Menace.
Perfect.
There's an episode 1?
There's an episode 1? Some people deny them. They just pretend like they don't exist.
Like they didn't exist, right?
It's sad.
Okay. So,
sad.
Mike, just set us up here, just a kind of quick little summary. We're not going to go real in depth on just a plot summary because we want to hit like key characters, we want to hit key settings,
definitely
key elements, and some unknowns.
So we're dealing with pre-fall of the second to newest republic.
Yeah. So the Galactic Republic. Yeah.
Galactic Republic. Yeah. I mean, the Republic seems to still be in it's functioning, and there's a Senate, there's a government, there's order. And that's
there's order.
There is order,
yep.
But there's some behind the workings
Actually,
that people aren't aware of.
There is order, and I think that's the whole piece. Is that this chance? The overarching thing is a spread of disorder.
Absolutely,
yeah. So good call.
So we're not seeing. We don't really see much of the government working in this movie, do we? That's more episode 2, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we get we get a little bit of it because you have sort of the bogging down of things in the Senate and the courts and stuff that they talk about, and Chancellor Valorum and the ascension of Palpatine. But we'll get into that. So yeah, you get a
little feel of that, and this ultimately it's the setup of Palpatine's plan. This is where it really kicks off, right?
Sort of his rise to power.
That's right.
Yeah. And right now, to start off episode 1, we have the blockade of Naboo, the Trade Federation.
That's right.
Right. So it kind of just starts off. There's the blockade is happening, and you've got 2 Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, are sent to negotiate.
That's right.
Right. So
secretly.
Secretly it's Jedi. They don't realize that it is Jedi. That the Chancellor Valorum actually sent Jedi. So once they find that out, Newt Gunray and those guys are pretty upset, pretty worried.
Yeah, absolutely, as they should be.
As they should be. So we'll just run through this real quick. So the negotiations fall apart. The Jedi have to flee. Essentially, they try to protect, because Naboo is under the protection of they're part of the Republic. Okay. Because we get into another situation here later on where Tatooine is not. They are not a part of the Republic. They're so far out there that they just don't fall under the jurisdiction of...
Currency doesn't work there. There's no security.
Control,
exactly.
Things like that. So it's sort of an outer rim. I think it's outer rim or mid rim to outer rim world.
It's the outer rim.
Is it outer rim?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So and Naboo is a much more sophisticated... They have sort of a royal. They've got a system set up. They've got a queen who's elected, and things like that. So
their own military guard. They live amongst the Gungans, which are a controversial.
Yeah, at first
addition.
There's some animosity between the two groups, right?
So, yeah,
for sure. But anyways, so they go in. They basically try to get the queen out because they're worried that she's going to be killed or forced to sign some sort of treaty.
Yeah, and
essentially this blockade is. Could be illegal, but you have secretly Senator Palpatine, senator from Naboo. Never forget that, too.
Yeah.
He was a senator from Naboo, and he eventually ascends to Chancellor Palpatine.
He does.
And then Emperor Palpatine.
Okay? Yeah.
Just going way ahead. But he actually he keeps the Senate bogged down in different things and stuff like that. He's supposed to be advocating, I think, just through different channels or manipulation of, we know he's the Dark Lord, so he could be doing all sorts of things to manipulate things in the Senate and in the courts. So Queen Amidala, Padme, right, wants to come plead her case to the Senate.
That this blockade that the Trade Federation has put on is illegal, and that they have no right to do so. And mind you, Palpatine is using this greedy power play of the Trade Federation. I mean, they're looking to force taxation on these people. Kind of a American kind of ideal here that they rise against and not being represented. Well, they're not represented by the Trade Federation, but he's playing on that greediness of these people who really just want to make more money and taxing trade routes in and out of Naboo.
That's right. So he's using that to his advantage, and really they're just a pawn in his game.
That's right.
Which is interesting. So, but along the way, so on their way out, they have to. You get the Jedi, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and by the way, we've kind of geared this towards people who maybe are either you could be new to Star Wars, you could be a really deep and sweaty fan, you could just be a middle level fan. So we're trying to hit everything.
Yeah,
we're trying. I mean, it's hard to do because Tiffany was like, maybe some deep and sweaty, but then also, simple things like Qui-Gon Jinn is a Jedi Master. Okay. And you have Obi-Wan as his Padawan learner. Okay, so things like that you might need to know.
Yeah, and then we can definitely dig into that stuff a little more after the summary or as we go. It tends to just come out.
It does, yeah. But
that's what she said.
It does. She does say that. So anyways, just to wrap up the summary, I guess, they go to the Senate, plead their case. Well, actually, I'm sorry, before that, they run across, they actually have to stop at Naboo, or not Naboo, Tatooine. And they have to pick up their hyperdrive is damaged.
Yep, they need a new hyperdrive. They can't get to Coruscant.
Right.
So while they're there trying to get parts, they meet someone.
Right. They meet young Anakin Skywalker.
They do.
And that's where this all just
goes to hell.
Yeah, it really does.
Goes to hell.
Qui-Gon right away notices that he's strong in the Force, takes a little blood sample, figures out he has super high midichlorian count.
That's right.
What is it, Mike? It's
20,000.
Over
midichlorians.
20,000. Yeah.
Higher than Master Yoda, I heard.
Right. That's what I hear. So, and when asked, we'll get back to this, but when asked who the father was, Shmi Skywalker says, no one.
There was no father. I carried him. I birthed him. I can't explain it.
I can't. Good job. Yeah, that's right. So they actually use, his connection to the Force, and he's a good pod racer. And there happened to be the Boonta Eve Classic was coming up, and so they decided to use him to win some money because Republic credits are no good.
No good,
right? According to Watto. And so what they need, the supplies that they need, they have to win in the Boonta Eve Classic, and Anakin wins it.
That's right.
Okay, he'd never finished a race before, but I think when does Qui-Gon actually say, "May the Force be with you" to him before he? Because I have a feeling when a Jedi says that to someone, it's sort of like gifting a little bit. The Force,
it really is.
Guide a little bit of that over this way.
It really is.
So that was neat. So they get what they need there. All the meanwhile, though, you have Palpatine or Darth Sidious working with his apprentice Darth Maul.
That's right.
Right in the shadows, and it is now time to reveal themselves.
And they were taken by surprise that Padme escaped.
They were. They didn't expect that.
And that she's going to be going to the Senate to say what's going on, that they're being occupied by the Trade Federation and their droid army. We kind of neglected to say that Naboo was under occupation by
a droid army.
A droid army with the Trade Federation. And so Palpatine sends Darth Maul out to find her.
He does. Yep. And there's transmissions. Well, the Trade Federation is trying to get, one of her other representatives to contact her, and manipulating her into coming back.
That's right.
And so Obi-Wan's on the ship telling her, no, don't send any transmissions.
Yep. And
Darth Maul tracks him down.
He does
on Tatooine. So after they win the Boonta Eve Classic, they're heading back with the supplies, and Qui-Gon actually is able to free the slave boy Annie.
He is.
Right? As a part of his negotiating with Watto, he wasn't able to get Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mother.
It's a rigged game.
It was, yeah. But, he did everything. I think, could Qui-Gon have done more? That's a question.
He absolutely could have.
That's a question for maybe another podcast
day.
But, man, he could have done...
He could have prevented the entire demise of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. That's tough.
I'm sorry. That's a spoiler alert, but...
Yeah.
I blame Qui-Gon.
Yeah, do we blame? Yeah, I don't know. Boy, Matt would really not like to hear that. Matt's a big fan of Qui-Gon.
He's not here to defend his favorite Jedi of all time.
But anyways, so on their way back, Qui-Gon frees Annie, blah, blah, blah. Darth Maul jumps Qui-Gon.
He does.
And Qui-Gon is a little taken back. He's trained in the Jedi arts.
Never faced a Sith Lord.
Hadn't faced anything like this. Now, technically in Legends, he had faced one of his apprentices, actually. This is a little
Legends
side note here. Legends in the Jedi Apprentice books. Actually, one of Qui-Gon's, his first apprentice, turned to the dark side.
Wow.
So that's why he was reluctant to take on.
Let's just pretend they haven't confronted a Sith Lord in hundreds of years.
Sorry about that. And actually, quite frankly, I really can't count that as canon. So let's just not even. We can't.
Well, let's be honest too. when he escapes Darth Maul, it's a very short fight.
Yes.
And Obi-Wan says, "What was that, Master?" And he says, "I don't know."
Right, that's true. He doesn't quite know what it was.
You would think he would understand. Well, look like a Sith Lord with a red lightsaber.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he doesn't, and even like when I mentioned that his apprentice fell to the dark side, wasn't really a Sith Lord or anything.
Gotcha.
At the time, so just fell to the dark side. I guess it's a Gotcha. But anyways, so the point is though, you're right. He doesn't quite know the identity of this attacker, and that's when when they get back to Coruscant. So they make it off Tatooine. They go to Coruscant, and Queen Amidala is going to plead her case, but they go back to the Jedi Council.
They do. They have two things to worry about now.
Right. So they have to worry about. They're now concerned about the identity of this attacker. They present that because that's a Jedi matter.
That's right.
They've basically done their job. They're kind of just giving their report to the council.
Yep.
Two things Qui-Gon has on his agenda is to talk about the attacker and to talk about Anakin Skywalker.
That's right.
Right? So...
it's muddy.
Yeah, it's...
Muddy's the conversation of the chosen one.
Right, it is. It is. So we're going to get into this later on, but let's just quickly, very, very briefly... No, we'll wait, because where does the council fit into the whole government situation? We can talk about that
a little bit
later. But for right now, they bring up the prophecy of the Chosen One, which we'll come back to, and they believe that Anakin is the Chosen One.
Yep.
Qui-Gon believes that, and so he wants the boy trained and tested. Ultimately, the council says no. Boy won't be trained.
He's too old.
Too old. Too old. So, actually, it was Mace Windu who said that, wasn't it?
He did, actually, yeah.
He said he's too old.
Yoda says it about Luke.
Yeah. So, anyways, to kind of we got to get through the summary real quick. So they plead their case. It's not gonna. They
don't believe her.
They don't really, and actually, Palpatine pushes for a vote of no confidence, and Chancellor Valorum, which Padme or Queen Amidala goes for. So there's this change in power between the Chancellor basically is ousted and. Palpatine ascends to Chancellor, which happens really at the end. You find that out, but they go back to Naboo. The Queen decides to go back there, and she wants to defend her people. She wants to take back her city, or her planet. And
does the Council send Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, or do they go on their own?
They send
to protect
her.
Yes.
And they say we can't fight a war for you.
That's right.
So we don't really know what your play
that's
is
funny.
Here. Yeah, character we haven't mentioned this whole time. Jar Jar Binks. People are going, you haven't mentioned Jar Jar. Yeah, that was intentional.
Yeah, we thought it would please you.
So now we have to mention him because he is basically Qui-Gon Jinn saved him earlier on, and he owed Qui-Gon a life debt.
Yeah.
So he's been tagging along this whole time.
Yep.
And is he a Dark Sith Lord? I don't know. We can talk about that another time. Yeah. So they go back, and Queen Amidala uses Jar Jar to sort of help win back. She needs the Gungan army.
Yeah, her people were in prison. They're starving, and they. I don't even think they had that much of an army to begin with.
No, they really didn't. It was more of a security force and stuff like that. So it was a really peaceful planet. But the Gungans have a pretty sufficient.
They're
army.
known as great warriors.
They are. They really are. Yes. So especially their leader, Commander Jar Jar.
Yeah. Nice. That explains that whole scene. We'll just move on from there. They set up basically we have sort of like three things going on at the end of this movie. There's a lot. I love listening to George Lucas talk about. By the time you're done with the pod racing scene, it's like there's so much that's happening in episode 1. You're like, wow, I'm exhausted. And then we have so much more to get through. And then we have another big. I was happy with it. It was great. But you have the Gungans are amassing outside of the capital city on Naboo, while Padme and her security forces and the Jedi are sneaking in to capture the Viceroy. That's right.
If they can capture him, then perhaps they can disable
stops everything.
Yeah, exactly. They can stop the droid army. So what they want to do is draw the army out against the Gungans and have them fight. They're really a diversion.
That's right.
Right. So while the security forces are headed in there to get Nute Gunray, they come across Darth Maul.
Hello.
Yeah. Pretty epic scene.
Yes.
I remember being in the theater, just a little guy, and couldn't believe when I saw the double lightsaber light up, and
you went full Sith.
It was crazy. I was so pumped. It was so cool. So Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan have to fight. Anakin is staying safely in the cockpit of a Naboo fighter, correct?
Yep.
And they end up fighting.
Crap goes down.
It goes down. Anakin blows up the command ship. The Gungan army prevails, and Qui-Gon is killed by Darth Maul.
Yeah,
I don't know.
in a really epic
right to the end.
manner, but that is what happened.
Right, that's what happened. That's the summary.
But then you also got to mention that Obi-Wan cuts down Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, he does. So he avenges his master, and promises to train the boy. Qui-Gon Jinn wanted Anakin to stay close. The council would not let them train Anakin. So with his dying, his last wishes or dying breath, he asked Obi-Wan to train the boy.
Yes.
He says he is the chosen one.
Yes.
And so Obi-Wan agrees to train the boy.
Mm-hmm. And he takes it before the council and he says, I'm going to train him.
Right.
Whether you want me to or not.
Yeah. Qui-Gon's defiance, I sense in you.
Yeah. And then Qui-Gon's body is burnt in a funeral.
Right. While Palpatine stands there and watches.
And Anakin arrogantly asks, well, what's going to happen to me now?
Right, yeah, I know. Come on. Yeah.
Like your mentor is burning there, and you're like, what about me? What about me? And Obi-Wan's like, yeah, I'm going to train you.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Also important that Yoda mentions the rule of two. He alludes to that.
That's right.
And saying that, was this the master or the apprentice that was killed with the Sith?
And is that a thing? I think we can tack that into this rule of two into our unknown section of our outline that we're going to get to, because
let's get there now.
I don't know if in new canon this is actually going to be a thing. They think.
I'm not
they think this, but like, who knows what Palpatine has out there?
Right.
He eventually has Dooku. He has Grievous working for him, who's not a Sith Lord, but may not be something in new canon that he abides by, that his previous mentor instated, or actually Bane did technically before.
Way back in, for sure. And then, but no, you're right. Then since that's how they had stayed undercover is this rule of two, and it made them more powerful in a sense and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. I think we actually have talked about that in other podcasts, but we can talk more about that in our next section. But or later on, we'll talk about it in the unknown section. So, do you want characters? Or you want to go to settings first? Because we've talked a lot about characters, but go to settings.
Absolutely.
So, let's just mention first like the planets. Yep. So, the planets in episode 1, you have it all starts off on Naboo / Trade Federation on the command ship.
Yep.
So you have that going on. And like I said, Naboo, we've mentioned, is a part of the Republic.
Beautiful planet.
Beautiful planet, yeah. There's not a lot of sand there.
Not a ton of sand.
Nope.
But some nice forests, beautiful dwellings.
Underground city
with the Gungans. And then you have the humans of the Naboo, they refer to them as. I think the Gungans don't even really look at themselves as being Naboo. But Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan convince them that they need to work together because they work in a symbiotic order or whatever they refer to it as. Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty neat. And so you have Naboo, which, the other planets that you have are Tatooine and Coruscant. And
Tatooine, a very familiar planet with Star Wars fans.
It should be. That's the first planet we see in Star Wars in Episode 4.
That's right.
Correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
trivia question. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is. So you have Anakin Skywalker is a slave there. His mother Shmi Skywalker, but we see Luke and his uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and Obi-Wan in Episode 4 on Tatooine.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So it's kind of neat to see them go back to Tatooine. They introduced a new planet, which was Naboo. Tatooine. Coruscant was referenced a lot in it wasn't. I don't know that it was directly mentioned in 4, 5, or 6. It wasn't, but in sort of the EU, it was mentioned quite a bit.
Yep,
it's where Palpatine hung out and what have you. So it is a planet that is
It's a city.
It's an entire. It's
It's all metro.
It is all metro, yeah. So multiple levels. It's cool when you read the books and you get to hear about the different sort of going down in Coruscant. It's pretty interesting. Like you just have these high rising, buildings and things like that. But there's just different levels. You can go deeper and deeper into the core of the planet or to the the lower levels.
Deeper you get, the more lawless it becomes.
Right, exactly.
And it's cool. You get to visualize that too in Rebels.
Yes,
exactly. Keep going deeper and deeper. It's something I never even thought about when I watched the prequels initially.
Right. It's pretty neat, I think. In episode 2, we see more of that actually out the gate. But so of Coruscant, and we have the Senate is there. You have the Jedi Council, the Jedi Temple is on Coruscant. There are other Jedi temples, but we're not really going to talk about all of that because we're just going to kind of stick to the movies, I think.
Yeah.
For now. So
absolutely. There's also a Sith hangout on Coruscant.
Yeah.
Well, somewhere Palpatine's hiding out.
He is. He's hiding out. That's right.
So
that we'll get into that in episode 2 and 3. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So lots going on in Coruscant, and you have different Grand Moffs staying there. You've got different the senators often spend a lot of their time on Coruscant. It's really where they are. They're away from their home worlds quite a bit. So Palpatine is more. He doesn't really know. He's kind of disconnected from Naboo, right? So he's there, and he knows the inner workings and the politics and things like that. So
absolutely,
really interesting. But so that's it really for settings. I think we'll move on to we'll go back to characters just a little bit. Any characters here we didn't mention?
I mean, we talked about Shmi, Palpatine, Maul, Padme.
I think we have talked a lot about these. I don't know that we need to go in any more detail into the council. The Jedi Council is kind of neat. We're not going to talk about all the members in that, but you do start in the Clone Wars. You'll get to know more of the council.
You start to see a hierarchy of who the decision makers really are.
That's right, you do. Yeah,
Mace Windu.
Yeah, and Ki-Adi-Mundi and Yoda are really sort of your main key players there in the council.
That's right.
So that's pretty neat. And they actually, when they do the screening of Anakin Skywalker, there are different tests.
Cup.
There's a cup.
There's another cup.
There's a
ship.
a speeder. A cup. That's how he says it. A cup.
A cup.
So
I love it.
Pretty neat. But yeah, so those are some of our different. There are other smaller characters that we might get into later.
Yeah.
We've got Kitster, and you've got some of these other different plays.
Yes. Jabba.
Anakin's friend. Jabba the Hutt was there.
Yep.
You have a reference to the Sand People on Tatooine. So like during the Boonta Eve Classic, so the pod racing event, you had Sand People there shooting, which was fun.
I think they really they made a heck of an effort to tie in the original series with this. Now looking back after rewatching this, when we talk about these moments, it really makes me think, you made an effort.
Well, and the place they could was Tatooine, because remember, that's an original planet. That's where things went down, and they're on Tatooine in episodes 4 and episode 6. So big deal, and you get a lot of Jabba. So you got Bib Fortuna is there as well. So his Twi'lek sort of buddy / servant first.
Yeah,
I guess is number 1, who kind of helps him run things at his palace. So you've got Jabba the Hutt and his folk are there. Mike thought he saw R5. If you're a Deep and Sweaty fan, is R5 in?
There's that whatever that red droid is at the beginning of episode 4 that blows its gasket or whatever happens to it. I could have swore that was it.
Now that I'm thinking back to Red 5 is more white with subtle red. That was more of a red with a little subtle white.
Could have been, yeah, you're right.
So I think it was a different droid, but gosh, for
that'd
a second,
be a surprising relation there.
I was like, wait, what? Red or R5?
Red 5.
Red 5.
Did you see Red 5 in this? That would have been a real interesting twist.
Yeah, that would have been. So let's talk about things. I think that you can all go look up sort of the characters and the planets and get more Deep and Sweaty and things like that. But I thought what we talked about was like the key elements, sort of some of the plot devices and the things that are introduced now in episode 1 that are going to carry into episodes 2 and 3 and even into 4, 5, and 6.
That's right.
And also some of the unknowns, things that are left unknown to this point, actually.
That's right.
So let's start with the first one, which is I want to start with the Force.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, we have to start with the Force.
You bastard.
You use the Force.
Use it.
We've got the Force, so we've got the living versus the cosmic Force. And actually, Mike and I did we did another podcast on this. We did really interesting where Pablo Hidalgo kind of broke down, was trying to explain to people in The Force Awakens really what that means. And
I love going from that and rewatching this after not having watched it for a while and just be like, okay, where's the connections? How's it going to tie? How's it tie in here?
Right. So I think the most, for me, I've always thought something that was really important early on was when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn are with the Trade Federation, and they're there, and Obi-Wan takes his hood down and he says, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yes.
So he has a bad feeling about it, and he starts to kind of tell Qui-Gon that it's not here, but somewhere else. He has this. He senses something amiss or a disturbance in the Force, so to speak.
Qui-Gon says he senses nothing.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? Right, and so he tells him. He says, "Keep your mind here and now, and stay in the living Force, essentially. Yeah. So in the present, right now." And then he says, "Well, Yoda said I should be mindful of the future and things like that." And that's where we need to stay here and now and in the moment. So that's where I kind of I draw a line between, to help folks understand the living versus the cosmic Force. And our Deep and Sweaty fans out there can talk about this in the comments if they want, and kind of let us know what you guys think about it. But I look at the living Force as it's living in each of us. So you have a living Force, I have a living Force, but we are then all connected to a cosmic Force. And our living Force for us, it's really what we see here. It's the present. It's us right now.
It's like your immediate connection and interaction to what's around you.
Right. Yes. I think when they tap into the cosmic Force, it's sort of that seeing into the future, visions, and getting deep and sweaty for a Jedi, really, and seeing things in the past and in the future. Luke has visions in Episode 5. Obi-Wan sensing something elsewhere in the galaxy, a disturbance. I think when Obi-Wan again in Episode 4 senses the destruction of Alderaan, there's that connection there. He has this living Force, but he's tied into the cosmic Force. Yeah. And when Luke in Episode 4 is kind of talking about, well, do I control it? Does it control me, or do I control it? And it's sort of this give and take relationship.
It is.
I think the first time where we're really jumping ahead here, but when the Force awakens, I think that's more of the cosmic Force calling out to Rey and awakening in her. The living Force awakening in her.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of a different way to kind of think about the Force. The Force is in all things. It's it binds us.
Yeah.
As Yoda says. So
penetrates us.
It does. But what do you think?
How I'll pose another question to you. How different would Obi-Wan have been in the way he viewed things, or the way things played out, or even Anakin, if Qui-Gon had survived? Because initially I thought, well, if Qui-Gon survived, then maybe they would have focused a little more on the here and now, and they would have paid attention to things like the immediate threats that were pretty obvious at times with Palpatine. But then I feel like Obi-Wan in 2 and 3 is just kind of flying by the seat of his pants half the time, to where he may be too focused on the living Force and not so much the bigger picture.
That's a good point, because I will say at one point Master Windu says to Yoda, he said, "Should we inform the Senate that we've lost the ability to use the Force?"
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
And Yoda was like, no, only multiply will our adversaries.
Yeah.
And it's like so right there, they're acknowledging that that's almost why I think Yoda goes into these deeper meditations. He's sensing that they've lost sort of, they've lost sight, they've lost their way in a sense, and things are not as they should be.
That's one thing that I think even we tend to forget, that you have to remember that dark side, just the shroud of it, just clouding their vision of the future and things like that. I think even just now, I just didn't even really think about that, and that's why they couldn't see just maybe some of these immediate things, or even the future.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I just thought that was really key. They can still, so when it says they've lost the ability, when he says we've lost the ability to use the Force, that's where I think you can also, again, start to draw a line and distinguish between they have a living Force and they've learned how to tap into it, and they're still Force pushing, they're still wielding their lightsabers, they're still, doing Jedi mind tricks and things, but they're less connected with, I think, the cosmic Force. And let me know if you think I'm wrong in the comments, because a lot of people go back and forth. I love reading about this, and I love listening to people talk about the Force. It's one of my favorite things to do. So, yeah, I mean, because to me, that's where I saw they still had a connection to the living Force, and they had been in tune with it enough that they themselves were bending it to their will more than they were letting it guide them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which answers sort of like Luke's question in episode 4 to Obi-Wan. You know, sort of like, does it control me? Am I in control of it? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan kind of doesn't give him a really, he kind of gives him a, you know, not a clear answer.
Yeah.
So, which is interesting. I had to pull a quote up to kind of get into it more. But anyways, so living versus cosmic. I think it's interesting. It's a struggle. And when we get all the way to The Force Awakens, it's an important conversation. Pablo Hidalgo was tweeting about it nonstop. You know, he went on a big Twitter rant about it.
It's going to be an important conversation on December 15th.
It really is, because
It's one of the first conversations.
The reason it's so important to me right now, and it's taking over a lot of this talk in episode 1, is because you look at like, and I don't know. Gosh, my mind's all over the place here, but like, Qui-Gon is even like, he's the one who discovers these, whether it was through a shaman of the wills or whether it was through whoever it was, that he learns how to become one with the Force, an ability that the Jedi did not have. So Qui-Gon learns that. Is he more in connection with the cosmic or the living Force, or just because he's beyond the? Like, how did he learn?
Chalk that up into the unknown section of this discussion,
right?
Because you know what? At the end of Clone Wars, you could tell it seemed they're like, we have all these loose ends that we want to blend into episode 2 and 3
and explore a little bit,
and explore it. But all this, those lost files of the Clone Wars, was everywhere. We never got a clear. I was like, this is the perfect time in an animated series to explain all this,
right?
And unless I'm wrong, I'm still confused.
Okay, so what they tried to do in Clone Wars, we're already outside of episode 1.
Ties in.
But this is good.
Key elements.
Qui-Gon, and we're talking about where things start in 1 and then where they're going to take us, right? So Qui-Gon dies in 1, but his story is not finished, and you need to remember that he's actually, I believe Liam Neeson does the voice in
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, yeah.
I think so.
When Anakin attacks all the Sand People. But so his story is not over, and I think originally it was supposed to be that it was a deleted scene in 3 where he had sort of explains that he had come across a shaman of the wills.
Yes.
Which I think is so interesting, and he had learned of this ability, or a way to sort of be pure of heart and to kind of, you know, more of what the Jedi should have been. He should, you know, I don't know, like less self-serving and things like that. You know what I mean? I can't remember the exact word. It's not coming to me right now. But so he learns that, and he's passing that on to Yoda. Because Yoda says at the end of 3, he's talking to Obi-Wan and says, training I have for you from your old master, you know, Qui-Gon, who's come back. Yeah. You know, and is now influencing things. Yeah. Something they hadn't had a power, and the things that they had not had access to, and I don't know. I mean, so, but yeah, what they tried to do is they switched it to the priestesses. So Yoda goes on his own journey, and he travels to the center of the galaxy, and sort of interacts with those 5. Is it 5? I think priestesses. Yes, yeah. And what were they called? The lost. The Clone Wars things. Those episodes. The
Lost Files.
The Lost Files. Yeah,
or whatever that was. Yeah.
Right. So I'm actually it starts off on Dagobah, where Yoda goes to the cave. Never forget the cave.
That's cool. That's what I wanted more of. But then it just got weird.
It did. It was sort of this. He had to go through quite a bit to learn this power and to be worthy of it. So he had to learn and understand sort of the flaws of the Jedi. But anyways.
You're right. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about the Lost Files sometime.
Yeah, So, good God. But Qui-Gon's story is not over, and so you get this whole piece here. So, anyways, let's talk something that's a little closer related with the Force, the midichlorians.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay?
That's right.
So it's an element that's brought up here. It's sort of explained. Midichlorians is kind of
it's a life form.
Yes.
Of some sort. Think of it maybe like organisms inside of you.
Right. And they do that because they have to take Anakin's blood in episode 1 to kind of figure out.
That's right.
To figure out his midichlorian count, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So without the midichlorians, this is Qui-Gon Jinn talking to Anakin Skywalker. Life could not exist. We would have no knowledge of the Force. They continually speak to us, telling us the will of the Force. When you learn to quiet your mind, you'll hear them speaking to you. Mm-hmm. Now, interesting, because we were just talking about the Force just a second ago. The will of the Force. Mm-hmm. So I've always said in The Force Awakens, there is an unseen character there.
The midichlorian?
the midichlorian. Where's he at? No, it's the Force.
Yeah.
The Force is that character that it's like the wind. You can see its effects. It has its own will. It has a mind of its own, and it awakens in Rey. It chooses her, if you will.
Yeah.
Don't even want to get into the chosen.
Are they? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But so that's what Qui-Gon says to Anakin about midichlorians. They're microscopic, intelligent life forms that originated from the foundation of life in the center of the galaxy, and they reside in the cells of all living organisms, etc. So.
See, to me, that's that more like living side of the Force,
Right,
within you.
Right, and I think that's maybe why Qui-Gon, when he talks about the living Force and staying focused on it, I think he kind of, mentions that quite a bit. So they come from like the wellspring of life. That's sort of like, I think that's also where Yoda travels, right, when he goes to learn how to become one with the Force and things.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't want to talk. I mean, midichlorians kind of go away, and there's really not. They don't ever really mention them again, do they?
They don't until kind of someone hit up Pablo, and he kind of tried, on the old tweeter. And he tried to tie it in a little bit and say, that's not so much the focus of what we're going on. This is the Force is in everything, which I think you can kind of maybe deduce from the prequels, maybe not. But that's a big question. Like, that's another, put that in the unknown section.
Right.
Are we ever going to hear this reference in new canon?
I don't think we will.
Ever.
Because there's a lot of people didn't really like it, and they didn't quite understand it, and there's some holes with it.
It made it seem as though only Jedi could be Force sensitive, and Pablo was trying to eliminate that idea of everyone's one with the Force. It's just a matter of how you're tapping into it and how, it's...
Yeah, but it is sort of like this idea, are you Force sensitive, or are you not Force sensitive? And that's where they were trying to, with midichlorians, say, if you had more of them, you were more likely to be Force sensitive.
Yeah.
But then it gets into a count. It got into, this person has more, so they should be more powerful. It got into a scaling thing.
Well,
and
still canon. Anakin Skywalker, the highest midichlorian count. Still canon.
As far as we know. Yeah.
You get rid of episode 1, we'll stop talking about it.
If they bring it up in episode 8 or something, there is no way they're bringing it up. But if they do, it's like, what's Rey's midichlorian count? Okay.
Maybe that's what Rey said.
Well,
it's just right.
The other thing too is that Anakin is conceived by the Force, correct? That according to Shmi, right? That's
chalk it up to the unknown section of the discussion, because I don't know.
Right, so we don't know. So let's move into that.
That's what we assume.
Prophecy. Right. So let's talk about the prophecy of the chosen one.
Yeah.
And we touched on it earlier, but this is something that Yoda says in episode 2. It's a prophecy that could have been misread, right? It could have been misinterpreted or what have you. Qui-Gon truly believed it. We have debated it. I think people at Story Group and George Lucas and people have said, he is the chosen one. Get over it. But then there's all this sort of they do things like when they did in Rebels, they had the fight between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan at that time sort of believes perhaps then that Luke is the chosen one. And it's just his perspective. He thinks Anakin Skywalker is dead and lost, and so doesn't see a redemption there. So,
but people still believe that there may be an argument there.
Yeah,
even after 6,
because you really can't have one without the other. It's like without Luke, does Anakin ever have a desire to turn back to, to the light side of the Force? So, anyways, you can go round and round on that one. But this prophecy, because it's coming up again, it's mentioned a little bit with Rey now, and so I think that's something you need to kind of remember. And in episode 8, we're going to be exploring the ancient nature of the Force, which is why I'm spending so much time on this. I think it's exciting. People have there's been rumors that now they've been saying her parentage is not that big of a deal. So I think she actually might have actual parents.
Midichlorians.
Right. The middies, right?
They're back.
But it could just be that, well, I mean, that was what people were saying, is that she could be another reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. Remember that was floating around?
Yeah, and it's the same people that sit there and bash midichlorians and was he formed by the midichlorians? Oh, that's hysterical. And now you're talking about they created Rey from Anakin's or Luke's hand. Come on, you can't say that and then say that you can't. Yeah. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Yep. Mike's fired up about it.
It pisses me off.
There's just no way. I don't think they would do that. It's kind of a blunder. I don't know. Like, do you remember in the Clone Wars when they were talking about you had the father and you had the brother and the sister?
Yes.
And that whole piece. So that's a little confusing. We'll have to talk about that another time. But people were trying to show a relationship between, like, who in 7, 8, and 9 would represent those characters. Yeah. So, I don't know. We don't want to get into that.
True.
Okay, so that is in our unknown. Is sort of how was he born? There's the whole idea that Plagueis. So just so you know, because we're trying to again make this, in case you don't know who these different players are, we're all over the place today, which is great.
That's okay.
We need a better outline.
It ties into it though.
It does. But Plagueis is Darth Plagueis was Darth Sidious's master, or Palpatine. Also, I had some students the other day who they did not make the connection that Palpatine was Sidious. Mm-hmm. And you have to remember, people get on there and bash people and blah, blah, I can't believe you don't know this. Or we had talked about when you come into Star Wars. I have a student who he knows everything about Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Everything about it.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind when he talks about it. I'm just like, wow.
And what did you tell him? You're going to learn today.
I did. Get
the whiteboard out.
So we went back and forth on a few things. But he knew so much, but he knew other things, but that's really what he enjoyed watching. So that's where he came in at. Other people come in at Rebels. That's what gets them into Star Wars. They don't, so some things that we take for granted that we would think a younger generation might know, they might not. So I noticed this the other day. There was this misconception about Palpatine and Sidious. I was kind of like, wow, Also, there was this misconception that Palpatine, they were kind of talking about how, he was... like Dooku, and they didn't quite get that Palpatine set up the Separatist, and he wanted chaos and that sort of peace. And so, we had a nice discussion about it.
Absolutely. Good.
But anyways, so I think it's important to kind of know. So Plagueis is Palpatine's master. And
we assume, in Legends,
true.
he is.
True. That's true.
You infer that if you take the Legends book out of it,
that's true.
Where that's confirmed, you infer it from the conversation he's having with Anakin about it.
That's
in
right.
Episode 3.
In Episode 3.
But I feel like it's absolute canon. I think they're going to bring that back.
The Legend of Darth Plagueis the
Wise, who is Snoke.
Yeah, who is Snoke. Is that what they said? They cut that out.
They cut it out. It's deleted scene.
So, anyways, Plagueis, it's believed, this is a sort of rumor theory, that maybe he helped create Anakin Skywalker.
Because he had the power to create life.
Yes.
Palpatine said.
Yep. So, exactly. And that was a story that the Jedi had not quite told their Padawans. Really interesting, too, that what the Jedi would pick and choose to tell their Padawans or their apprentices didn't know if they could quite handle it, worried that they would turn or worried that they would dabble in these things. So they were very much,
taken aback when they run into a Sith Lord.
Right.
Oh, let's not prepare them for that.
Right.
Maybe they need to understand it so they can understand how to, fight it.
Right. Anakin says they're holding me back. There's things they're not telling me. He's right.
I guess when you have 1,000 years of peace,
right? Yeah.
You tend to lose sight of the important things. But
so another piece that I don't know, I guess it's good to kind of bring up is that at the very end you have the reasons why Obi-Wan takes on Anakin. It's that whole piece with his master. He kills Darth Maul, which if you get into Clone Wars and into Rebels, there's this, which is canon. Darth Maul is still alive, actually. So I said he kills him, but actually Darth Maul comes back, and people are like, how did that happen?
Watch Clone Wars.
Watch Clone Wars, and, it's a wild ride, but he is alive, and so there's this rivalry between the two of them for years. But anyways, just that connection between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and he agreed to take on Anakin Skywalker. Do you think he was prepared?
No.
I mean, like out of the gate, he's going to go ahead and take on. He hasn't even yet been really like a master or a Jedi Knight technically himself.
That's the thing. He tells who. So Qui-Gon, I'm ready to face the trials, and then Qui-Gon dies, and all of a sudden he's in a meditation room with Yoda, and he's like, Jedi Knight you are.
Right, yeah.
Did you face the trials? Did you? Or they're just like, yeah, you've been through some crap. You faced a Sith Lord, so we'll go ahead and give you props.
That's sort of their thing, is that it was one or two different things.
That was the trial, maybe.
That is, right. And so,
But you're right. Then he's got an apprentice all of a sudden.
Exactly. All of a sudden, he didn't really have a chance to go out and sort of go on his own assignments. He's already taking care of and teaching a young boy. So I think that's part of your problem right there.
Yeah.
So
it's just a recipe for disaster.
yeah, right.
Palpatine was on it. It's a great story.
It is. It really is.
There's so many different angles.
It really is.
And this is what leads us up to it.
Yep.
The disaster in the making is just right before our eyes. And you forget some of these things until you go back and you watch it. And you're like, it's a great story. And I'm glad we didn't
focused on.
Exactly. We didn't talk about
CGI.
Yeah, none of that crap. Everyone can talk about the execution of it. Go right ahead. But you appreciate the story, and that's why it's nice to just watch it, talk about it, see how it plays into new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I like when they reference, because now I kind of feel like, like you said, in episode 1, they had referenced things from the originals. And I kind of wonder if we're going to get any of those references as prequel references.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In 8 and 9. I don't know that we will, but people tend to forget them. But you're right. There's a good story here, and there's good pieces on the board.
We could literally see Hayden Christensen in episode 8.
That's true. There's talk. I think they might have wanted a celebration when he was there. It was sort of like, how are people going to respond? Do we still love him? Yes, we always have. It was never his fault.
I mean, you could have a CGI Yoda. You could have, who knows? It's just, I think there are little elements of it. Yeah, they need to.
Do we want to talk about the blunder of Jar Jar Binks? Because I'm trying to think of things in one that we might want to talk about. And I think this is something that it starts here, and we're talking about him in episode 3.
Yeah, and
well, 2 for sure.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I mean, you understand what George Lucas was trying to do and make it a little more relatable to kids, but there's such a great story there, and then you have
he's the key to everything.
He is a Sith Lord. Wow, I'm just seeing the Obi-Wan Darth Maul fight happen behind us.
Yeah, sorry, episode
epic.
1 just off the camera.
Super distracting. Duel of Fates. But it's unfortunate because I feel like that distracts from the really great story there is there. And I don't think it was intended to. It was intended to be fun, but it completely distracts you from a really great story.
Right. It does. Yeah.
That might not have been the conversation we were about to have, but I just felt like I needed to say it.
No, I mean, it's so the piece with Jar Jar, if you're out there, like, there are kids who did like him, but he's just been made fun of so much, and it's just been a piece that kind of has let people down. And I think his design, it was meant to be something different, a big turning point, and really when he basically gives the powers that he gives to Palpatine. You know what I mean? It's such an easy character for Palpatine to play from his home world, in a sense. Representative Binks gives him all those powers to basically...
and I tend to forget that. I tend to forgive that he brought it forth to the Senate to just give Palpatine these emergency powers. Like, I you could take that out of there for me, and I think Palpatine did it himself. Like, I mean, like, it's just... Yeah,
I don't really fault Binks for that. I mean, again, that's...
Binks. I love you just called him by his last name.
Binks.
Old Binks.
Yeah, so it's Palpatine's manipulating everyone. I mean, he's even to the point where, like, he's meeting with the Jedi. He's the Sith Lord they're looking for, and he's right in front of them. He meets with them and gives them updates, and they give him updates.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
So it's not, so Jar Jar, it is, so I kind of forgive that too. Just a little bit. Another piece we need to talk about is another thread that will continue on here is the obvious one that Anakin and Padme, the little love interest starts.
A little awkwardness there.
Yeah, she's an angel.
Yeah.
So Anakin, I think, is just sort of starstruck. He just falls in love with her, and he's thought about her every day since... Because remember that line later on when, like, there's 10 years between episode 1 and episode 2, so that's important. He really grows up there, and there's books in the EU that kind of fill in what he and Obi-Wan did and their missions and things, which are really neat, and I love those. And it is sad that some of those are not canon anymore. But so yeah, when he sees Padme again, it's just like she sees it as this friendly relationship. Wow, you've grown up, and
did he have visions of her? He talks about her being an angel, but I mean, do we really hear about his visions? Like in episode 1 that he's had as a young kid? Becoming a Jedi, freeing the slaves. Like, seeing her as an angel, like it's kind of subtle, but he says those things. It's like he was probably having legit
He had a
visions.
dream. Like he calls them dreams sometimes.
Yeah.
He? Yeah, and he's talking about how,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. I wanted to look this up really quick, but I think people talk about how awkward the relationship is or what have you, but I think, how old was Padme in episode 1, Mike? Do you remember?
I think she was either a late teenager or early 20s or something like that.
I actually think.
wrong?
So she is born. Oh gosh.
Wow, we're in Star Wars years here.
Yeah, boy, that's before the Battle of Yavin. I thought she was supposed to be playing like a 14 or a 16-year-old.
Yeah, she's supposed to be pretty. She's the youngest to become queen.
Right?
Yeah, so she's pretty doggone young.
Right. Yeah. And I just thought for sure it said here somewhere because, obviously the actors who play these two individuals are there is a big age.
Well, I think Natalie Portman's probably looked like this since she was 10 years old, so she doesn't age. I think she's looked like this her entire life, probably. So
right, okay. So that's interesting. So at the age of 12, she goes into that legislative youth program, right? Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years later, she's
much
elected
like her
queen.
daughter.
So if she's 12 when she goes into that program, 2 years later, she is elected queen of Naboo, and so 14, maybe 15.
It's pretty doggone young.
Right. And so she's supposed to be much closer in age to him.
And she has moments where I think she's trying to portray herself as a younger, I don't know, there's a little immaturity in the character that
Anakin's
she's
9.
trying to play there. Yeah. Like when she's like,
when she's talking to Qui-Gon.
I don't approve. Like it was very
Queen wouldn't
childish.
approve
Yeah.
of how.
It's very childish, and even some of her interactions with Annie, like Annie. Oh gosh,
I
that's
know.
the big thing we didn't mention. She calls him Annie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I see her trying, but then she was wielding a pistol at some point, looking like some
I know.
badass adult, and so I get what they were trying to do. I think
It's a little awkward, but it's just so folks know they're supposed to be a little closer in age, and they really don't look like it at all. But
want a bigger name actor in there.
they did. That's what they wanted. So
Yeah.
But so, anyways, that whole love, sort of that relationship, starts there. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that's going to carry us through. And this is a Skywalker story. So
right.
it is the story of Anakin Skywalker. George Lucas has said it's 1 through 6 is really his story, which is interesting. It's his story arc, even though you've got like this Luke is 4, 5, and 6. It's really been a story about the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. But we just happen to start in episode 4.
I really would like
Which
to
is
see a little
interesting.
more what happens between 1 and 2.
I know, and that's why I said it is disappointing. Like it's actually interesting to see Obi-Wan struggles a little bit in the old Legends book. Struggles with how quickly Anakin catches on to things, and he wants to test himself and try himself. And Obi-Wan, that's why you understand the reference when Anakin says in episode 2 he's holding me back, because in the books you could kind of see where he was sort of nervous and wants to kind of him to progress at this rate, or you don't quite understand everything yet. You may be really good at that, but there's just other pieces. I mean, Obi-Wan was very mindful of a lot of different things. He was cautious and he could analyze. I think he was called the negotiator. So I love Obi-Wan, but yeah. So you get a lot more of that. There's also a piece where, like in Clone Wars, they do this pretty well, where you get to see the other Jedi and you get to see some of their apprentices and their Padawan learners, and he actually gets to sit across from, I forget their names, but it's in Rogue Planet, I think it's called, or Rogue something, where he gets to interact with another Padawan learner, and they go on some missions and stuff.
I think that's another time frame where they could do another animated series.
Sure, yeah,
It would be very similar to the Clone Wars, probably, but they had missions and stuff that they refer to, and I feel like that relationship probably developed more there than it did during the Clone Wars. There's so much going on in the Clone Wars. They're not together a ton in the Clone Wars,
right.
They're always out doing their own things, and they're leading platoons and stuff.
Right,
I feel like the relationship could have developed more after 1, and maybe in an animated series we would see that. It's the only way they'd probably be able to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They made references to it, but still, you could sense it and you could feel it. They did a pretty good job there, but it was sort of like, yeah, I wish I had more direct. You know, you always want more. We're always wanting more from Star Wars, but and they've given us so much. It's kind of unbelievable that we keep asking.
It's unfair. But it's unfair.
It is what it is. So that's episode 1. I mean, I think next time in episode 2, we'll kind of take some questions or some comments. Like, what are some things would you like? Because we struggled with the idea of, do we go deep and sweaty with like the names of the ships? Do we go into all the different, side characters and Sebulba and talk about pod racing and all those different things? But it's sort of like, that's just a lot.
It is.
And I think it's just almost like we kind of just want like a refresher. Get everybody on the same page.
That's right.
Talk about it. Talk about the nature of the Force, the key players, some of these open plot holes, things that are left open to this day that we're looking for answers still in The Last Jedi.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's kind of what we're trying to get to, is where does this all lead to and how does it all connect?
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
Okay. So we'll do better next time. We'll be a little more...
prepared?
Prepared, yeah.
Are we ever prepared?
I don't know.
What comes out, comes out.
Isn't it? That's what she said.
Absolutely.
You set me up. You're the softball. You literally...
There you go. Yeah.
That doesn't get many of those, all right?
That's all right.
All right, cool.
Softballs?
That's what she said? We could say it all day.
I love it.
I love The Office.
Amen. That's right.
So anyways, so we have Star Wars Trivia Trials. It's going to be next Saturday, and working on a format where we basically sat down, we watched like within the first 5 to 10 minutes. Mike comes up with some really interesting, funny questions.
Yes.
So I do want you to tune in because they're not your typical questions.
Yeah.
But they're also not going to be like really nitty-gritty, deep and sweaty. It depends on who we have.
Yeah.
If we have another podcasting group out there, or we have somebody who's writing for like Clashing Sabers and Minot Manor.
Oh, you better be ready.
Go deep and sweaty,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we want to know...
It's supposed to be entertaining, but there's going to be some challenging questions in there.
Yeah.
I ain't going to send someone here with the green ribbon for participating.
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not going to do that.
So there's going to be some interesting... This is trivia. And this isn't going to be scripted. This isn't going to be... it's going to be fun and entertaining, but there's going to be some knowledge that's going to be dropped.
There is. The other piece of it, too, is that we want people who... Because we're kind of hitting up some of our friends, and this is sort of our outer rim...
That's right.
Contestants,
That's
so
right.
people in the backwater worlds,
Yeah.
We think your mid-rim is more like your podcasters, your big-time YouTubers, and what have you. And
that's right.
But anyways, so you basically just have to watch the movie.
Yep.
You should be able to get all of this from just watching the movie. You don't have to go look up Wikipedia or, read the the novelization version and things like that. I mean, we're not really going to do that to people because that's just too much to do in 1 week. And so I think
it's a dedication to the films.
Right, it is. So I'm excited. If you're interested, or if you know someone who's interested, or if you actually have questions, some you think are funny questions or interesting, you want to help Mike and Ez out, feel free to submit those. Just send them to our email. You either send them to, actually you can message us on YouTube, or you can send them to, we have 2 email addresses, guys. Sorry, it's kind of weird because we kind of did the switch over thing, but we've got wecanlookitup@gmail.com, or you can send it to rebelwatchpodcasting at gmail.com as well. Right. Facebook, send us a message there as well. If you're one of our patrons, feel free to send us a message with your questions. So, we've got Lindsay, Juan Cholo, you guys.
We'll put you on the damn trivia.
Heidi, yeah, exactly. So
that's right.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, exactly. So we want to get just kind of want to have fun, and again, this is just leading into. So you're going to be getting about 2 podcasts a week now from Mike and Ez.
And it's actually happening. We've been saying this for weeks. We've been
saying it for weeks.
It's actually happening. It's on the books.
Yep.
It's ready.
It is ready. So we're going to do 3 weeks straight. Then we'll take a break around Halloween. We'll take a week off where we have some other things going on, and then we'll get back in. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Take a break. 4, 5, and 6. Take a break for Thanksgiving, and then 7, and then some theories, and it'll lead us right into episode 8.
That's right.
So super excited. So please stay tuned.
Great Joe's excited too.
Great Joe's excited.
Great job.
So, all right, guys. Mike, you got anything else you want to add?
No, man, real excited. Excited to be podcasting again. Excited to have it on the books. Trivia trials upcoming.
Yeah.
You might see some promotional stuff for it. Just having a good time. I'm excited.
Some promotional stuff.
It's coming.
Should I go ahead and say?
That's what she said.
That's what she said. Yeah. But can I go ahead and tell folks that, because if I say it, then we'll go ahead and get it. And once we put it on the podcast, we have to do it.
Yeah.
We're getting some swag.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what she said too? Okay.
I
So
think
we're
so.
getting some swag, some wristbands, some maybe we might we have a funny T-shirt, some slogans.
One of the
Our
best
good buddy
Star Wars
Sam.
T-shirts I think that
That's
could be out there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the best out there. So
It reveals Snoke's identity.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yes.
It'll be on our shop, so you can go.
That's right.
You can go check it out. And so that's coming. Our friend Sam is working on some.
We're trying to update our look. We got a really good friend, a buddy of ours who does design and stuff. So we're looking to just get that Star Wars feel. I don't know if we've actually fully tapped into what Rebel Watch is.
Yeah.
Or we're still working on it. We're still new to this. It's so unscripted. It's ridiculous.
But it's so great. That's the thing. We have so much fun doing it.
That's right.
And we love talking about Star Wars just all the time. Like we'll just be texting each other about it throughout the day. So it's awesome. If you out there have some concept ideas or you have logo ideas, like I said, questions, anything, Mike and I are completely down. We want you guys to send that to us, and we most of the time we'll incorporate it, into the podcast. If you're one of our patrons, you are a part of the show.
Right.
You dictate to the show what we kind of do.
That's right.
So this just like to have fun. We like to. It's a community, and I think we really realized that when we went down to Star Wars Celebration.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Felt like we were a part of a community. We felt like it just was family.
And that's what the goals of the trivia trials is going to be, is to just web that community.
Right.
I want podcasters to be a part of it. It's just fun and entertaining, but it's just, I don't know, it is all about that community, and we really enjoyed that, and that's why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. That's why it started.
It's on the books, man.
It's on the books.
So we are going to need help with some of the trivia writing. So we're going to figure that piece out this week. But
that's right.
My gosh, it's happening. So, all right, guys. So stay tuned. Hit us up. Leave some comments down there. Like I said, leave your negative reviews here on YouTube and your positive ones over on iTunes. Really appreciate it. There'll be some swag for those who do that in the future.
That's right. That's
all
right.
So thanks for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Hello. It's me.
It's me. Shmee. Let me get a little juice.
That's what she said.
Okay. All right.
I'm going low.
BB-8, hold on. I'm going low.